Yeah, good morning. So last session yesterday, I just given you overview of a few topics. So yesterday we discussed about, I will give just summary about what are the challenges in modern web development. What are the challenges in modern web development? Yesterday we discussed that, and what is the solution, and what is SPA, single page application, and how to build a single page application. And one more point, what are the issues with JavaScript and jQuery. These are the basic points we learned yesterday. In yesterday's session, we discussed about what are the challenges in modern web development and how to solve them. Solution is better to build what kind of applications? Single page applications. So what is the nature of single page applications? Can you tell? The nature of single page applications. Characteristics. Single page applications characteristics. So those are characteristics. Characteristics means how they behave. That means unified user experience, fluid user experience, and loosely coupled and extensible, right? All these comes under the characteristics. Means single page application have all these characteristics. So loosely coupled, simplified deployment, fluid user experience. I explained what those are. Next, one more point I explained what is difference between Angular and React. Angular is a developer's platform and React is just a library. React is good, both are required in the current generation. So as a web developer, you need knowledge of both. Mandatory. There is no choice like Angular or React. You need both Angular and React. Yesterday I showed you the priority, and if your application is already having an UI and you want to make the UI more effective, then you can go with React. If you want to completely depend on UI design with a interactive responsive designs, then you can go with Angular. That means if you are not much concentrating on UI in your server side and you want to build a complete effective application in the client side, then you can go with Angular. Depends on project requirements. We need both Angular and React. Now, today we will see the differences. So another important you need to know today is, so what is Angular JS and Angular? So what are the differences between Angular JS and Angular? Actually, you should know that before Angular we have Angular JS. So Google developers community built a framework called Angular JS. Google developers community, they build a framework called Angular JS. It was in early 2004, 2010, sorry. In the early 2010, they build a framework called Angular JS. And Google built this Angular JS and they started using this AngularJS for their internal applications. That means Google related several internal applications are built by using this framework called AngularJS. That means before the world knows about AngularJS, already AngularJS is there. So already AngularJS is there. So Google was using it internally. But after that, developers came to know about this framework because I will show you. Actually, Google have developers account. This is developers.google.com. This is Google developers community. This is Google developers community. What you can do is, I hope many people may be aware of this. This is nothing but you can build applications for Google. That means as a developer, you can build applications for Google. For example, you have Google Play Store. In Google Play Store, so many apps are present, Android apps and all these apps are present. So you can build such apps and you can contribute to Google. So that means this is the community that allows you to build applications and contribute. Now the question is, as a developer, which technology I should use to build application? So Google says that whatever technology you know, you use it. So we are ready to take that application, Java, .NET, PHP, anything. But when developers started building applications and they given to Google, they are not satisfied. Why? Because Google have their own apps. Google have their own apps, and the apps that we build are not similar. Their applications are more effective, more interactive. Then we asked Google what you are using. Then Google said that we have our own framework called AngularJS. That means before the world knows about AngularJS, AngularJS is already there. So Google internally using it. So many such languages, technologies are there. I hope you know about a language called Go. Have you heard? No. Go is one artificial intelligence language which is going to trend in the future generation, and that belongs to Google. It is just like C, C++. So I hope if you haven't heard about that, Go language, this language belongs to Google. It is a programming language. It is a programming language. So this programming language belongs to Google. It's Google's official language. That means you have Google artificial intelligence applications. All Google artificial intelligence applications are built with this Go language. So it is very highly effective language. Now developers are coming, learning it, and now developers are knowing about it. And from past few years, developers asked Google to make it open source so that they can freely download and use and develop applications using this language. And in future, after few years, we can expect that this language also will trend more in the market for building artificial intelligence applications. We don't know, market may change, but we are expecting this language to trend in the future. So it just started. That means so many such technologies, frameworks, languages are being used by large communities which you don't know. You may not even heard about them, ever heard about them. AngularJS was such framework. So AngularJS built by Google for its internal reasons. Now developers came to know about it and they asked Google to make it open source so that everybody can use it. So they made it open source so that everybody can use it and implement. So what are the issues with AngularJS? That means people started using AngularJS extensively because who is behind AngularJS? Google. Google like large communities behind AngularJS means we have lot of trust on it, and that the technology framework will be supported with a large community. If any issue comes easily, they will solve it, right? That is the reason, one of the reason AngularJS became popular in the early days, because of Google, the community behind it. You know that React.js community behind React.js, Facebook. React.js belongs to Facebook. React.js belongs to Facebook community, and Angular belongs to Google community. That means two big people are behind this. That's the reason developers have a lot of trust on that, confidence on that, that if any issues comes, they will solve easily, right? So technically, one of the reason that they became popular is lot of such technologies are there. Knockout.js, Backbone.js, Ember.js, so many. But why Angular and React are popular? Because of one of the reason is the people behind them. So ability is also there, and another reason is who is behind them. Developers see that. So which community is behind that? So Google started AngularJS. Google started AngularJS. But what is problem with AngularJS is AngularJS uses JavaScript as language. So AngularJS is a framework which needs a language. It uses JavaScript as language. What is problem in JavaScript? Again, JavaScript means DOM manipulations. JavaScript is not strongly typed language. You know, JavaScript is not strongly typed language. Not strongly typed language means we don't have a restriction for data types. For example, I said x equal to 10. What is the data type of x? Number. So I can store string also inside it. There is no restriction. So JavaScript is not strongly typed. It is schemaless. It is schemaless, and JavaScript will not support JavaScript will not support complete OOP, object-oriented program. Only certain features of OOPs are supported, like class, like inheritance, like polymorphism, but others not supported. That means limited object-oriented features, reusability issues, testability issues, maintainability issues, extensibility issues are there. Another important problem is AngularJS is not built for your requirements. AngularJS is not built for your requirements. Due to that, hence lot of gaps. AngularJS is not built for our requirements, so lot of gaps. So you need to depend on lot of third parties. For example, I will tell you what does that means. I will give a simple example. See, actually, suppose I will give a small concept here. We have some supermarket. And these supermarket people asked us to build an application. So that means we are developers. We need to build an application for them. Now the question is, which technology you will use? Java, .NET, PHP, Python. By using which technology you will build application for them? How your development company plans a software technology to use to build application? How your company decides that we will use Java, we will use .NET, we will use PHP? There is nothing like this language is trending, this is superior. In software industry, there is no scope of that this is good language, this is bad language. There is nothing like that. Now the question is, how your company selects a technology? Actually, what we do is we prepare one table. In the table, we have as is, we have to be, and we have gap. First, our company prepares this table. As is means what your technology is capable of what your technology is capable of. That means what are the capacity, what is the capacity of your technology, Java, .NET, what is the capacity, and what to be means what client wants, what client wants, what he wants, and what your technology is capable of. Remember, whatever client wants, every technology is not capable of satisfying that. For example, you learned Java, or you learned .NET, or you learned PHP or Python, and you have to build an application for supermarket. Then in Java, do you know how to write a program to read barcode? In Java, you know how to write a program to generate barcode. In how to write a program to read barcode. If you cannot do that, supermarket completely runs on that barcode. Then how you will build an application for that? That means what client wants. That means for every product, what we need, for every product, what we need. So for every product means for every application, whatever requirements are there, we need to satisfy. And in supermarket, every product have a barcode. You have a barcode reader machine. You scan it. Details will open in the screen. They will select the quantity and details. Then that is a software. If you are Java, if you are .NET, if you are PHP, and you don't know how to generate barcode, read barcodes, then how you will build an application? That means now the question is your Java having a library for reading barcode, generating barcode? No. If it is not having, so it can use third parties. It can use third parties. That means what is meant by gap? Gap means what your technology is not capable of. Then how you will fulfill the gap? To fulfill the gap, we need to depend on third parties. Lot of third parties are there. For example, you see, we have a third party like Telerik. Telerik is a third party. This Telerik is a third party. So you see, Telerik is a third party. Observe, these people are customers of Telerik. That means NASA is customer of Telerik. NASA is customer of Telerik means you can imagine their abilities. That means they are providing software support for NASA like people. That means what your technology is not capable of, these people will build and give. You have to purchase that library and use it. That means you have to use barcode library that is not available in your Java or .NET. Then you have to purchase that library from people who built it. You have to purchase it, you have to download it, you have to use it and implement. That means every technology is not capable of doing everything what client wants. Every technology have gaps. That means now what happens here is, suppose Java is having 20% gaps and .NET is having some 25% gaps. Some PHP is having only 5% gaps. Then we decide to go with PHP. We decide to go with PHP because 95% of work it can manage. Only 5% we need to depend on third parties. That means Wipro, Infosys, or other companies, every company have Java developer, .NET developer, PHP developer, Python developer, everyone will be there. Why so many people are there? Only one technology is good, then only that technology people should be there, right? Right? If Java is good, only Java developers must be there in a company. Then why they have so many technology developers, because every project have its own requirements. And your technology is not capable of satisfying every client requirements. According to that, we choose technology. According to client requirements, according to the technology capacity, we have to identify gaps. Now, why I discussed this point? Because Angular is not built, AngularJS is not built for our requirements. If it is not built for our requirements and we are using it, then obviously lot of gaps will be there. Obviously, lot of gaps will be there. We have to fulfill them by using third parties. Lot of third parties are required. That means everything is not available from AngularJS. We have to depend on a lot of third parties. This is the problem. So with AngularJS, that is the reason what happened is in 2014, these AngularJS community, that means this is the AngularJS team. That means the people who built AngularJS, they thought that better we will build some new technology which can solve all these problems. That because many developers are asking for this kind of technology, they thought of making it more better. Then what they have done is they started a language. They started a language called EtScript. They started a language called EtScript. So because JavaScript is having so many problems, they started a language called EtScript. They started using that language EtScript. They developed a language called EtScript. But while they are developing this language EtScript, suddenly Microsoft people saw that Google is trying some new language. Microsoft people saw that Google is trying some new language. Microsoft saw that they are trying a new language called EtScript, and Microsoft was very much surprised. Why? Because they already have such language. Microsoft already have such language called TypeScript. They already have that language called TypeScript. They built this language for their technology called .NET. For their .NET technology, actually, TypeScript was built by Anders Hesselberg, so who is the architect of a language called C#. So TypeScript, actually, this is Anders Hesselberg. He is the architect of a language called C#. C# is a .NET language. He is the architect of the language called C#. And very important is he is the architect of the language. He is the architect of the language TypeScript. TypeScript designed, developed by Microsoft. And Microsoft saw that this Google people also trying same language. Then Microsoft asked, why you are trying this? Already we have. That means why you are trying a new language? We already have it. So then Google said that, okay, let's take a look on this TypeScript. And Google was very much satisfied. Google was very much satisfied with this TypeScript language. That's the reason what they have done is they stopped EtScript. They stopped EtScript and they asked Microsoft to make TypeScript open source. Because Microsoft is not a player of open source. Microsoft was not into open source community very much. But what they have done is because Google community asked it, they made TypeScript as open source. And Google started using this TypeScript as a language. That means now you are learning a technology which is supported by two big people in the software market, Microsoft and Google. TypeScript is a language which belongs to Microsoft, and Angular is a technology which belongs to Google. Angular uses the language TypeScript. So the point here is this community, what they have done is they started, this community started alternative for AngularJS, and that alternative is called Angular. The alternative is called Angular. That means AngularJS different, Angular is different. They completely reconstructed this technology. The previous version of AngularJS was 1x version. 1x version, the last version is 1.8, some version 1.8. And the Angular new version, they started as 2, Angular 2. And remember, Angular is an alternative for AngularJS, not replacement. That means many people think that AngularJS advanced is Angular. No, it is completely different. AngularJS is different, Angular is different. Angular is completely reconstructed. And remember, in the current software companies, some companies need AngularJS people also. Even today, because their projects are still running on AngularJS. They don't want Angular people, AngularJS people. Remember, if you learn Angular, you cannot handle AngularJS. If you learn AngularJS, you cannot handle Angular. Both you have to learn separately. They are completely different. Don't think that Angular is advanced to AngularJS. It is not advanced. It is just an alternative. Still, currently companies, you see, for example, so yesterday I already showed you, you go to the job site, you search for some full stack developer. Full stack developer means Java developer or .NET developer or any full stack developer. And in the full stack developers, so in several requirements, let's filter that. Yeah, you see, they ask knowledge of AngularJS and Angular both. They ask requirement of both AngularJS and Angular. So many times you may heard that people may be telling you that your friends or somebody, AngularJS is outdated, so Angular is advanced. That's all not correct. Why? Because see, a technology is used for several years, means already millions of applications are built, and everybody don't want to upgrade to the new one. They want to still continue in the old. In that case, several projects needs old version also. You may be learning a new version, but it is not mandatory that company have to implement this new version only. They have to use old versions because already they built application several years back. And they ask the client that, do you want to update to new version? Then client says that, is new version having any new features which I need to use? He says that, no, you can continue with your old version. Then he says, why to update? Don't update. That means current latest Windows version is Windows 11. Do you have updated everyone to Windows 11? You are maybe still using Windows 7 or Windows 8. If I ask you why you haven't updated, then you will ask, why should I update? Because already my work is going on and I am satisfied with my work. Why should I update? I don't want the new features of Windows 11. Until or unless I badly need them, I will not update. Software companies also same. It's not mandatory that whatever latest version you learn, the same version you will use in companies. You may be working on older. That's the reason you should know both, right? So technically, AngularJS, you see, AngularJS.org. This is the official AngularJS. So, and you see, now they said that AngularJS support has officially ended on January 2022. Means officially their support ended. If you are still using, use it, no problem. We have AngularJS, but we don't support anymore. Means any issues are there, we are not responsible. You take care. That means you are on your own if you are solving. That is the reason they said that, okay, then try our new Angular. That means Angular is not a replacement. So Angular is an alternate. Angular is an alternative to whom? Angular JS. So before Angular, they have Angular JS. People are migrated already from Angular JS to Angular. And you don't need to learn any Angular JS. You can directly start Angular. There is no relation at all. There is no relation. But sometimes if you show experience like 7 years, 10 years experience, then obviously they think you know both. Right? Because if you are showing 10 years experience, that means before Angular, what you have done? Obviously Angular JS. That means in such cases, they think that you have knowledge of both Angular JS and Angular, but not mandatory. Not mandatory. So you don't need to learn any Angular JS. You can directly start with the Angular. So now the question here is, what are the features of Angular? We will discuss. What are the features of Angular? We will discuss. But what is the language used by Angular? Angular is using a language called Angular. What is Angular? We will see that now. What are the features of Angular? I will show you. What are the features of Angular? Features of Angular. You understood the drawbacks of Angular JS. Drawbacks of Angular JS, it is JavaScript based, right? And OOP not supported. It is not strongly typed using. So all these are the drawbacks. Now, what are the features of Angular? That means why people started migrating towards Angular. Some key features I will tell you. First important feature, Angular uses TypeScript as a language. TypeScript as a language. And the TypeScript is object-oriented programming language. TypeScript is a complete object-oriented programming language. It's a complete OOP language. That means it is more better than your JavaScript. And very surprisingly, just 2-3 days back, Microsoft have successfully done a trail run of TypeScript directly running on browser. That is great revolution. That means TypeScript is not understandable to browsers. Browsers can understand only JavaScript. Even you learn TypeScript as a language, this language need to be translated into JavaScript. Finally, your software uses JavaScript. But you will not directly use JavaScript. You will write in TypeScript. Recently, just 2-3 days back, Microsoft had made a trail run. They done a trail run of TypeScript directly running on browser, and they are successful. That is great revolution in the web technologies now. That means now in future, you can expect that TypeScript is used as a client-side language with not JavaScript. We don't know how it happens because still lot of testing should happen. Browser compatibilities need to be tested, but they were successful in running TypeScript directly on browser. That's a great revolution. Now in future, no more JavaScript will be there if TypeScript successful in every aspect. That is very revolutionary step actually. And we are expecting, if it is, then it is very good, but not sure because we don't know what future problems will come. They are still doing some trials on it, but they are successful. They officially announced that successful trail run of TypeScript running on browser directly. So up to now, TypeScript cannot directly run on browser. We write TypeScript is converted into JavaScript. So, but what is advantage of TypeScript? TypeScript is complete OOP language. Another important feature is Angular is a complete developers platform. What is developers platform? Yesterday I told you. Developers platform means end-to-end solution for developer. That means it will provide all the tools from building, for debugging, testing, and deploying. Deploying. All the tools are provided by Angular. And very important is Angular is modular. Modular and component based. Angular is modular and component based. Modular means, actually, I will tell you a simple point here. So what is modular? I will give you a basic point here. Means, remember, I am just giving overview, because once we start learning Angular, we will detailedly discuss. As of now, I already told you, we are not going to directly deal with Angular. First, we will learn TypeScript. After that, we will go to Angular. When I start Angular, I will detailedly tell you all the features of Angular, versions, differences, and everything, right? As of now, I am just giving an overview. What are the key features of Angular when compared to AngularJS? AngularJS. We have actually two libraries. Actually, we have legacy library. We have legacy library and we have modern library. Actually, difference is, that means modular. I will simply say modular. Okay. Modular library. So generally, one simple point is, suppose we are developing an application. We are developing an application. I hope, suppose you know any technology. So for example, suppose we have a library called Bootstrap. Bootstrap CSS file is present. In this CSS file, it is occupying, suppose, 5 MB space. And in that, almost 10,000 lines logic is written, code is written, 10,000 lines code is written. That is its statistics. And what you are doing is, in this application, you are creating a button, and for that button, you are using a class BTN, which is a Bootstrap class. That means you are using only one class, and for this class, you are importing this entire file. Don't you think it is heavy on application? That means you are importing complete library to use a small feature. This is heavy on application. Heavy on application. Modular means it will load only the library which is needed for that situation. Modular means part by part. That means it will load only the library that is required for that situation. That makes applications lightweight. That makes applications faster. Modular library means now all technologies are, remember, even technologies like Java, .NET, PHP, Python, all are legacy libraries earlier. From past few years, they changed their legacy library to modular libraries. Everybody is now changing to modular library. Modular library means only the library that is needed for that situation will be loaded, not everything. That means application specific frameworks, libraries, that is called modular library. Angular comes with modular library. Modular library. What is component based? I will tell you. We will discuss about that. So it is, what is advantage of this? It is fast. As per Google community, it is 10x faster. Faster than Angular. Than AngularJS. 10 times faster than AngularJS. It is fast. It is lightweight. It is supporting a language called TypeScript, which supports, that means easy to extend, easy to test, and easy to deploy. All are easy. Now we have more better features when compared to AngularJS. Later you are going to learn what detailed features in every version they introduced. We will discuss once we start learning about Angular. So this is the basic difference between AngularJS and Angular. So is Angular replacement of AngularJS? Angular is not replacement of AngularJS. It is just an alternate. That means still companies may use Angular and AngularJS. So we are learning this Angular, and the latest version of Angular up to now, latest Angular version is Angular is 13. And we are going to learn this Angular 13, the latest version. Later, we will discuss about previous versions, 13 version differences once you start learning about it. But you cannot directly start Angular. So in order to start Angular, first you need to know a language called TypeScript. So today we are going to see that point about TypeScript. So first we are going to understand what is TypeScript. What is TypeScript? Because as a developer, first we have to learn TypeScript, then we have to use this TypeScript in Angular. And it is easy for everybody to deal with TypeScript if we already have knowledge of JavaScript, because several JavaScript concepts are similar in TypeScript. So anyhow, I will explain everything from basic level. So it is easy, right? What I will do is I will just ignore the topics which are same in both JavaScript and TypeScript. What's new in TypeScript, I will explain. So similar features we can ignore. You have already, I told you, you have to learn JavaScript as an Angular developer, mandatory. You cannot call yourself as a web developer without knowledge of HTML and JavaScript. Mandatory, compulsory, right? TypeScript you are using, but finally TypeScript also converted into JavaScript. In that case, you must have knowledge of JavaScript, right? Compulsory. So what is TypeScript? Already I told you. Let's see the definition of this, means how TypeScript actually works. So TypeScript is strictly typed JavaScript, strictly typed mode of JavaScript. TypeScript is strictly typed mode of JavaScript. What does this means? Let's see. I hope if you have learned JavaScript, you know JavaScript strict mode. Now, I hope everybody knows JavaScript strict mode. I will just give you a simple overview. Don't worry what I am typing. Just see the concept. Suppose I am giving x equal to 10, document.write x is equal to whatever the value of x. Now here important, you see this is working fine. This is working fine, but this is not good. Why this is not good is, as per the programming standards, x is a variable which is not declared. Without declaring a variable, you are trying to use that variable and JavaScript is allowing it. That's not good as per programming standards. As per programming standards, that is not good, but JavaScript is allowing it. Then you know that already you learned in JavaScript. Then developers are asked to turn the strict mode for JavaScript. How to turn the strict mode for JavaScript? We have to write use strict. Use strict. This will turn on the strict mode for JavaScript. That means it will not allow developers to violate the programming standards. You have to follow the standards. That means JavaScript is not in strict mode. We have to turn on the strict mode. If I turn on the strict mode, use strict, you can see that now it is not working, because it says that, you can see it will say that in the console, you can see it will say that x is not defined. X is not defined. So as per programming standards, we have to first declare x. We have to declare x, then it will work. This is called strict mode. JavaScript by default generally have a strict mode. Now, what is the meaning of this? TypeScript is strictly typed mode of JavaScript. That means by default, TypeScript is in strict mode. You don't need to turn on the strict mode. JavaScript is not in strict mode. You have to turn on the strict mode. And TypeScript is by default in strict mode. Another important, it is a strongly typed language. It is a strongly typed language. Just now I explained what is meant by strongly typed language. Strongly typed language means it can specify and restrict the data type. If it says number, you can store only number. If it says string, you can store only string. JavaScript is not strongly typed language. That means JavaScript is not a strongly typed language. For example, X is currently, suppose I am writing like this. So type of X. That means now it is saying that X is, so it is saying that X is currently number. X is currently number. And into that X I am storing some string. Then automatically that number changes to string. But it should not allow. Once you say number, it should store only number. But there is no chance. In JavaScript, you don't have that restriction. So JavaScript is not strongly typed. And this is strongly typed. TypeScript is strongly typed. And very important, it supports complete object-oriented programming. TypeScript supports complete object-oriented programming. That means you can simply say that TypeScript is an OOP language. TypeScript is an OOP language, complete object-oriented programming language. Now, very important is JavaScript is not a OOP language. JavaScript supports only some features of OOPs. It is not a OOP language. For example, just example is JavaScript supports a class. We can have a class. We can create a class. In OOPs languages, class will be there. But for example, I am creating name is equal to, suppose John, that is the name. And I want to restrict this accessibility of name. Then generally we have access specifiers like public, private, am I right? Object-oriented programming should support access modifications, but it is not there. It is not there. JavaScript will not support it. For example, JavaScript means object-oriented programming requires, I hope you know, they need abstract classes, am I right? But here there is no abstract. No abstract. Now, object-oriented programming needs interfaces, am I right? But here there is no interface. So there is no interfaces available. Then how it is an OOP language? So many people, because they don't have a proper idea on JavaScript, they have a controversial comment on that JavaScript is OOP language. I saw in several websites. In several websites, they have shown you that JavaScript OOP topics. They never say that JavaScript is a OOP language. That means JavaScript is having some features of OOPs, but not a OOP language. That means several features are lacking. If anybody tries to argue you, just one question: how we can create an abstract class in JavaScript? If it is an OOP language, tell me how to create an abstract class, how to create an interface. So you tell me. If you can tell that, then I can conclude that it is OOP language. Right? If all these are not there, then how it is an OOP language? It is not an OOP language. It supports only certain features of OOPs. Right? That is important. Technically, TypeScript, another very important point. TypeScript is built with TypeScript. This is very great point. TypeScript is completely built with TypeScript. What does that mean? Generally, any language is built with the support of some other languages. Because if any language have to interact with hardware, hardware means mouse, keyboards, and all these. If it have to interact with hardware, it have to take support of binary languages. It have to take support of low-level languages. But TypeScript is completely built with TypeScript. That means it can directly interact interact with hardware services and operating system. That is very great. That means remember one point, TypeScript is not developed for Angular. You are learning for Angular. Don't think that TypeScript designed for Angular. TypeScript can individually build very large scale applications. TypeScript can individually build very large scale applications. That means it is equivalent to the languages like Java. It is equivalent to the languages like C#, C++. It can build complete large scale applications, TypeScript. You are using with Angular. Don't think that TypeScript developed for Angular. TypeScript is developed by Microsoft to build individually large scale applications. It's very big language. You are using it just as a complement for Angular, right? Don't come to a conclusion that it is a language developed for Angular. It is not a language developed for Angular. Angular borrowed it. Angular taking support of TypeScript. So individually, TypeScript can build large scale applications. TypeScript can build very large scale applications. Individually, it can build large scale applications. And TypeScript is completely built with TypeScript means it can directly interact with operating system. It can directly interact with hardware services. That is the ability of TypeScript. So Angular is using TypeScript as a language for building application. Understood? For building application. So TypeScript can individually build applications. But Angular is using this TypeScript to overcome the problems of JavaScript. It is using TypeScript. So how this TypeScript works, how to install, how do we set up, how to learn this language, we will see. For that, first you need to understand the TypeScript architecture. Remember, a lot of other features are there which are not there in JavaScript. Lot of other features are there which are not there in JavaScript. So we will discuss those features one by one now. We will learn about them, right? Now, first you need to understand TypeScript architecture. That means how TypeScript works, the basic architecture of TypeScript. All these notes, diagrams and everything, I will upload into Google Classroom. What you have to do is, you go to Google Classroom, okay? Google Classroom, you have an app. So, or you can just open on your browser Google Classroom and log in with your Google account in Google Classroom. So this is the Google Classroom, and here you will find this plus button. There you will have a join class. You click on join class and it will ask you the class code. So what you do is you give this code. This is the class code. For online people, I will paste it. So this is the code. This is the class code. Currently it is empty. I will upload all notes at the end of session. Okay. So classroom related, whatever notes is there, everything I will upload there, right? Soft copy, whatever we are discussing, right? You can get the class code. You join with this class code, the notes I will upload. It is currently empty. Already I told you it is empty. I will, at the end of the session, I will upload everything. Okay. So here, let's see what is the TypeScript architecture. The basic architecture of TypeScript. That means how TypeScript actually works. how TypeScript actually works. Let's see the basic architecture of TypeScript, how it is going to work. Let's see the TypeScript architecture. This is the basic architecture of TypeScript. This is the basic TypeScript architecture. This is the TypeScript architecture. Let's see this, what it is, right? And as a developer, if you know some technical terms, it is easy to understand. It is easy to understand. Let's see. See, TypeScript, in the TypeScript architecture, you can see from the bottom you will come. TypeScript is having a compiler, is having a core compiler. Now tell me, as a developer, what is the role of compiler? Compiler's responsibility is translating. It will translate the high level language program into machine code language. That is the responsibility of compiler. Only that actually compiler does lot of things. What compiler does is, compiler is responsible for checking syntax errors. Syntax errors. It is responsible for checking the keywords you use. It is responsible for converting of types, one data type to another. It is responsible for handling input activities, output activities. Compiler will do a lot of things. And you see, the compiler is having several files. See, inside the compiler, it is having so many files. Every file is responsible for doing different tasks. For example, core.ts, it is used to verify the structure of the code you written. Structure means curly brace started, curly brace ended. It will verify the structure of the code you written, and it will report if there is a problem in the structure. Program.ts, it will verify the keywords. What keywords you are using, are the keywords reserved keywords or not, it will verify that. Scanner.ts, it is responsible for handling input activities. Input, reading value from the input user and taking the value, processing the value. Parser is responsible for converting string to number, number to string. It is done by parser. Checker is used to verify data type. Is the data type integer, the value integer supplied or not? It is verifying the data type. Emitter is responsible for handling output activities. Scanner for input, emitter for output. That means, remember, compiler is built in TypeScript. Compiler is built in TypeScript. That means it can directly interact with hardware. It can directly interact with hardware. That's what we said, that TypeScript is no ordinary language. TypeScript is a language built on TypeScript, which can directly talk with operating systems, which can directly interact with hardware services, which every language cannot do. Every language cannot do. So that is the responsibility of core compiler. So in the architecture, you have seen the first one, what we have, core compiler. What is the responsibility core compiler is? So it checks syntax. It is responsible for checking the keywords. It is responsible for parsing, translating. It is responsible for input and output activities. All these are managed by compiler. And if there are any problem, what it will do, it will report errors. It will report errors. And you know that we call them as compile time errors. Compile time errors. It is responsible for reporting compile time errors. Okay. Now it is successful. That means whatever program you written completely checked. There are no problems in it. Now, is this program understandable to browser? Browser cannot understand, because browser can understand only one language. What is it? JavaScript. Now you written program in TypeScript, compiled successfully, but it is not understandable to browser. Then what we have to do? We have to translate this into JavaScript. That is done by another compiler, standalone compiler. Standalone compiler. We have two compilers in TypeScript. One is TypeScript standalone compiler, TSC, we call it as. TypeScript standalone compiler. Why two compilers? One compiler will check the problems. After checking the problems, if everything is fine, then the second compiler, what it will do is, what is the responsibility? It translates, or you can simply say it transcompiles. Understood? It transcompiles TypeScript program into JavaScript. That means in the TypeScript architecture, you can see two compilers are there. One is core compiler, another one standalone compiler. What is the purpose of these two compilers? One compiler checks the problems, another compiler translates into JavaScript. Now the question here is very important. See, so you can see now there is another option, service. What is a service according to you? In software technologies, what is a service? In software technologies, what is a service? What is a service in software technologies? Service means a predefined business logic. Predefined business logic, which is already written. A predefined business logic, which is already written, which is already having some functionality. If you want that in your application, you don't need to rebuild it again. You need to just inject it. We call it as dependency injection mechanism, right? That means service means predefined business logic. It is already written. It contains all the logic and functionality. If you want to use it in your application, you don't need to build it again. You need to just inject it into your application. Service is a predefined business logic. For example, you are designing a login form, and in the login form, we need to prevent robots. We need to prevent robots. That means robots should not able to log in. Then what we do? There is an option called CAPTCHA. What is CAPTCHA? CAPTCHA is a service. CAPTCHA is a service used in login form, registration form, and everywhere to verify whether the user is a human or robot. Actually, if anybody asked you, do you know how to write code for CAPTCHA? That is wrong question. Why? Because CAPTCHA is a artificial intelligence program. We don't write it. We just use it. Already written by some third parties. Some third parties will write CAPTCHA programs, services. We just inject them and use it. That means we don't write CAPTCHA. We use CAPTCHAs. Why? Because CAPTCHA is an artificial intelligence program which is already written. We have to just use it. That means it is a service. It is a service. Service means predefined business logic. So, for example, you see here, I'll just give you a basic thing here. So, for example, you see reCAPTCHA. This is Google reCAPTCHA. This is Google reCAPTCHA. You see, it says that reCAPTCHA is a free service. It is a free service that protects your site from spam and abuse. If you want to protect your site from spam and abuse, then you need CAPTCHA. And don't think that you can write code for CAPTCHA. Not possible at all. For that, you need to know artificial intelligence programming. And you don't waste time in writing artificial intelligence programming. We just use it. Already written, already provided by these people. We have to just use it. So it is a service. It is a service. So technically, what is meant by service? Service means a predefined business logic. Here, the same concept here. I told you that compiler will verify whether you written the correct logic or not, keywords are correct or not. From where it will compile? It will compile from the service. Understood? That means I told you that it will verify the keyword you written is correct or not. From where it will verify? That means what is the library for compiler? Compiler library is service. That means language service provides the library required for compiler. Understood? Whatever library required for compiler, it is provided by language service. Language service. So two compilers are there. One is standalone compiler, another one core. What is the responsibility of core compiler? So checking the errors. If there are any errors, it fails to compile. If compiled successfully, next step we need to translate to JavaScript. That is done by whom? Standalone compiler. From where they are going to verify that? They are going to verify that from the language service. Language service, right? Now, you know there is another TS server. What is the purpose of server in computer technology? In computer technology, what is the purpose of server? What do you say? Server's responsibility is hosting. You have to use these words: hosting, managing request and response. That is the main. What is the role of server? Server's responsibility is to host your application and manage the request from client, send a response to client. Server's responsibility is hosting, managing request and response. All this is done by server. Now, what is TS server? TypeScript server. TypeScript server is nothing but this is the location where all this will happen. Understood? That means your TypeScript programs are loaded, they are compiled, they are processed, they are converted into JavaScript. Where? In the server. That means TypeScript internally have a server. That server loads your programs, compiles the programs. That is the platform where this all will happen. The compiling, the translating, everything happens on server. So TS server internally manages all these activities. Everything is managed inside the server. Inside the server. That is TS server. Another important, shim. Have you ever heard about this shim? In any technology? Any technology, have you heard about shim? No? Remember, actually means that much in-depth concept you might not learn, but if any technology says that I am platform independent, if any technology says that I am platform independent means I can run on any operating system. That is because of shimmers. Because of shimmer. Shimmers are responsible for translating your code understandable to every operating system. Cross-platform. Any technology says I am cross-platform. That is because of shimmers. Because of shimmers. Actually, it is very general concept. You may know shrim. I hope you know. I will show you a simple one. Suppose you know shrimp. You know shrimp, na? So this is shrimps. Prawns. It is looking like a prawn only, right? Prawn and shrimps. Difference is both belongs to the same family. Shrimp is gender neutral. Shrimps are gender neutral, neither male or female. They are gender neutral. Shrimps are gender neutral. That means the meaning of the word shim indicates that it is platform neutral. It is platform neutral. Every technology have it. That means your Java is having shimmers. That means internal Java, .NET, PHP, Python, every technology who says I am cross-platform, internally they have a shimmer. It is like a tool, compiler tool, which is going to translate your code in such a way that it is understandable to every operating system. The work of translating means you may be learning like Java have JVM, right? Virtual machines which are responsible for translating. It is a machine. In that machine, who? That means you know a compiler, but in the compiler, so many things will be there. That means who is responsible for doing it? That is shimmers. That means now I hope you know the meaning of this. What is shim? Shim is going to translate your code in such a way that it is understandable to every operating system. That means, is TypeScript understandable to every operating system? Yes. Who is responsible for doing that? Shims. They convert the code into managed code now. What is managed code? Managed code is the code which is understandable to every operating system. Managed code is the code which is understandable to every operating system. So this is the service which is understandable to every operating system. This is the service which is operating system native. If you run on Windows, it will be Windows native. If you run on Linux, it will be Linux native. If you run on Mac, it will be Mac native. But if you want to make it cross-platform, it should go through Shim. From Shimmer, it will be translated into managed code. Managed code is the code which is understandable to every operating system. Every operating system. That is the role of this. And editors, not a part. Editor is nothing but, you know, editors are used for writing the program, compiling, like Notepad, Edit Plus, Visual Studio Code, all these comes under that category. That means editors are the software tools used by TypeScript for building the programs, compiling the programs, running the programs. It's an IDE, integrated development environment. So entire TypeScript works in this way. So TypeScript have core compiler, TypeScript have standalone compiler, TypeScript have language service, TypeScript server, shimmers managed. I hope you understood all of them. So now we need to learn how to set up the environment for TypeScript and work. Means practical now. That means we will learn how to download, install TypeScript on PC and how to start working with TypeScript. Practically learning this language. We will start practical now. That we'll see in our next session. Right? From the next session, we will start practical. Practically working on TypeScript. That means I will show you how to install, how do we set up and everything, right? We can start practically. These all notes along with this presentation, I will upload into Google Classroom. You will get there. Okay. Then tomorrow, no session. So only this Saturday, we don't have the session, right? Generally, every Saturday we will have session because during the demos Saturday, we will not have a session. And from Monday, we will continue. Okay. Our next session will be on Monday. Right. In Monday session, we will start practically step by step everything. Okay. Right.